The Flash number 30, Joshua Williamson writing, Neil Gouge on art. So we pick up just after the last issue, and if you remember, they were investigating someone sneaking out blood samples, and Barry goes back to check the sort of the checkout logs to the police station, thinking it's an inside job, and there was a fire. Whoever the villain is set a fire, and we sort of come into the aftermath of that, where Barry's been basically told off for going back in alone, and like if you suspected something, you should have went in with backup, yada yada yada, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I basically break this issue into two halves. The first half is this kind of, well, maybe three chunks actually, but the first chunk is Barry basically losing his shit with Captain Singh, and in front of the entire station calling him out and being like, you know what, this department was a joke until I worked here, and I'm the only reason why we solve cases. And
we had cold cases, and what was the second one? There's only two kind of, and it was like unsolved and messed up.
Yeah,
that they couldn't be used. And
I
came in
cold
and
cases
and
rushed cases.
Yeah,
there you go.
He's actually, he's definitely been a bit of a dick, but it's when he sings like, "Oh, no wonder you're having trouble with Iris." That's when he gets set off, and you can tell, like, obviously he's acting out a character, but that's the point, because he's infected with this. It's basically a red kryptonite story for Flash, to an extent. The negative.
I like
Speed
Emo
Force.
Berry because I'm so used to happy-go-lucky, like, oh shucks, all right. The fact that he is reading everyone like, this is my problem with you. Like, even his buddy, he's like, why are you even here? You should have retired like 5 years ago.
Harsh.
Yeah.
And basically, he turns around to Singh and says, you know what, if you want rid of me, just fire me already, and then storms out there.
Yeah.
And do you know what I love about that moment? Is like, okay, you expect them, like, Singh to get angry and like maybe that's what they're going to go with this, and like maybe he'll be fired for a while before he comes back, when everything gets sorted out. But I like that, because they all know Barry, they know what he's like, and they all like him, that when he says that and walks out of the room, Singh and everyone else is just standing there in kind of shock, and he says, like, Barry, as if he wants to offer help. He doesn't get angry. He sort of realises that Barry's...
Barry's going through something. Obviously, they think it's just to do with Iris.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, we get this isn't normal. Yeah. We should do something.
They know him well enough that he doesn't get angry. At this point, he knows, no, this is him acting out a character. I want to extend an offer of help.
I'm really happy that they recognise that, because obviously it felt out of character for Barry, intentionally so. That's not a criticism, but it would have been weird if the others didn't pick up on it as well.
But they did, and so he handled.
Because they're a family, like they point that out a lot, that they're a family.
So, but Kristen goes out to talk to him and basically talks him down a little bit. You can probably make it up. And I like that, as much as I'm comparing it to a Red Kryptonite story, the difference is here is that Barry kind of regains control at times, and it's not constant. Just
it's in and out, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like emotions do trigger it, and it's kind of heightening the anger, but it's not completely taking over all the time. And so he works with her, and they sort of work through the case. This is sort of the middle chunk of the book. But he basically, like, they summarise that, to dispose the blood, you would do it in a place where it would, because if it was in a house or something like that, all these traces of this blood would be really obvious in terms of forensics. And he basically gets the idea of who the culprit is, and it turns out to be Ramsey, who's the mortician in the police station. And I actually forgot that I vaguely remember like either in an interview or something mentioned there was going to be a new rogue or a new villain for the Flash. And I remembered it as they sort of revealed it at the end of the book, and I'm like, oh yeah. And I actually have to admit, I quite like this new villain. I think this is a nice addition to the Flash's gallery of rogues.
I don't like the way he looks, though. I think he's kind of lame looking.
He kind of looks like Red Skull, but
a little bit.
Yeah. He kind of looks like Mercury from Metal Man.
I like his power. That's what I like about him.
Yeah,
I like
his
power.
His power's cool.
Overpowered, like just the fact he's like Magneto, but just with blood.
Yeah,
like,
he can control blood.
And everyone has
it.
blood.
And
exactly.
I like that his origin is that he's a hemophiliac, or he was, and because he understood it and he learned obviously his skills as a mortician, as a doctor, and all the rest of it, mixed with his own knowledge of his own condition, and basically what he was doing was he was stealing metahuman blood and experimenting on it, and that's how he ended up with this. So now he's impenetrable. He can't bleed, which is obviously the opposite of being a hemophiliac. And he can now control blood like Magneto can control metal. That is super scary and stuff. But it gives Barry this great moment because he goes down to confront him as the Flash, and after he gets hit, he gets so angry that his negative speed force like basically throws him out the building, like through the walls, and he goes out onto the street. And the civilians think Flash killed him because he's like down for a second. And
Barry thinks that too.
Yeah, he gets really upset. He's worried that, oh man, I need to be better than this. I'm better than what Thawne thinks I'm at. You know, he's really like, swaying on him. But then obviously, who we find out is now called Bloodwork, which, by the way, perfect name for him.
Great name.
Yeah, so Bloodwork is our new villain, and we see him. He basically looks like a skinned corpse.
Yeah, I like that he addresses that the rogues' name are all really on the nose, so he took that in the spirit of it. So, you know, like Bloodwork, like you said, we're saying, oh, it's a perfect name. And it is because it's very on the nose. But he's it's aware of it, so he's poking fun at it at the same time.
Yeah,
I really like
dead comic booky. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is definitely my favourite issue of, like, you know, since we've had Negative Flash.
Right. I think it's really interesting where you say that this is actually part 1 of the Bloodwork arc.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. Because definitely in the trade, like, I imagine that the last 2 issues...
Those last 2 will be part of it, yeah. It feels like that was like a prelude. It completely just leads into this. Like, even the cliffhanger of the last issue just led straight into this. This doesn't necessarily feel like a part 1, even though it's the introduction of the villain. And
it's also not the only book this week that has that effect, actually, where it says it's part 1, but it's actually just leading straight in from the last issue. Not one you read.
Oh, okay.
Before I can see you thinking, you're like,
I'm racking through them, going, which one's that?
But no, I'm digging Bloodwork. I like the origin, and I feel like we do it. I feel like this is a villain that I'll be happy if he pops up every once in a while, because it's, at least so far, he feels like a proper cool villain with an interesting power.
Yeah, I will say, as a criticism of the issue is the art. I think it's mostly pretty good, but I think the heads are too big.
Oh, I said this. See the first issue that Googe ever did a Flash, around like 6 or 7 or something like that. I remember having the same complaint. Is that
it's gotten worse though? I think.
Actually, it didn't bother me as much in this one compared to his previous issues, because my main issue was always when the Flash was in costume, and here there's less of that.
Ironically, I think when the Flash is in costume, it looks fine. It's when it's Barry that looks really strange to me.
That's fair. He does do big heads. That is, like, he's not bad otherwise, but Googe does do big heads.
The expressions are really over the top as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cartoonish, but not in like a silly way, and just like comic strip.
Which
yeah,
I will maybe critique it. That I wonder if given what this arc is about, that maybe a different art style would have benefited. Like, instead of this sort of slightly cartoony style, I almost think that something like I don't know, something a bit more moody would have been better.
I think the cartoony style benefits, you know, the idea that Bloodwork's aware that he's kind of, like, you know, his name's kind of a joke.
It benefits that. I think the whole darker side of Barry, though, and him, like, struggling with these darker issues, maybe would lend itself more to...
something a bit grittier.
Yeah.
This is very bright and colourful and a bit too clean.
Yeah. So that'd be a criticism, but I am enjoying the story. It's more as it goes on. This is the best issue of the Negative Flash stuff so far, I'd say.